He was never supposed to answer that call. It was 2 a.m. The rain was hammering the roof like it wanted to break in, and Daniel Carter was half asleep, on the couch with a cold slice of pizza in his hand and his 6-year-old daughter curled up on his chest. His phone buzzed again, unknown number. He almost ignored it, until something in him, that strange parental instinct that never sleeps, made him pick up. What he heard next would change both their lives forever. "Mr. Carter, please, you have to come. He's not breathing." The voice was trembling, desperate, breaking through static. Daniel blinked, trying to understand. "Ma'am, I think you have the wrong," but the line went dead. He sat there, the rain pounding harder, the silence after the call louder than anything he'd heard before. He looked at his daughter, then at his car keys on the table. He could have gone back to sleep, but he didn't. Daniel wasn't the kind of man who could ignore someone in pain. After losing his wife to a car accident 3 years ago, he had lived with a quiet kind of ache that taught him to never look away from suffering. So he bundled his daughter, Lily, into the car, wrapped her in her blanket, and drove into the storm toward an address that the caller had blurted out before the line went dead. When he arrived, the house was enormous in estate, really perched on a hill and glowing faintly under the storm. He ran to the front door and banged on it. A woman, young and elegant, opened it with tears streaming down her face, her phone still in her shaking hands. "You're here?" she gasped, eyes wide. "Thank God you're here, please. He's upstairs." Daniel didn't know what else to do but follow. Upstairs, a man her father, it turned out, lay on the floor, motionless. Daniel was no doctor, but he'd done CPR training years ago. Instinct took over. He dropped to his knees and started chest compressions while the woman, trembling and sobbing, whispered prayers between her gasps. Minutes felt like hours until, miraculously, the old man coughed and began to breathe again. The woman, her name was Evelyn, fell to the floor, crying in relief. "You saved him," she whispered. "I thought I'd called the family doctor. I must have pressed the wrong number. But you came." Daniel just nodded, exhausted and drenched, his daughter clinging to his leg. "Anyone would have," he said quietly, but she shook her head. "No, not anyone." Over the next few days, Evelyn refused to let him just leave. Her father was stable but weak, and she insisted on repaying the kindness. She invited Daniel and Lily to stay in the guest house on the estate until the storm passed. Daniel didn't want to impose, but Lily, ever curious and sweet, had already taken to Evelyn, who, despite her wealth and polish, seemed lonelier than anyone Daniel had ever met. Evelyn was an heiress, though she never used that word herself. The estate had belonged to her family for generations, but her fortune had brought her more isolation than happiness. Her father's declining health and her failed engagement had left her trapped in a mansion full of echoes. Yet when Daniel spoke, his voice grounded her. He talked about simple things, Lily's favorite bedtime stories, his job as a mechanic, the way he missed his wife every day but found pieces of her in the small moments with his daughter. And Evelyn, who had built walls around her heart for years, felt those walls crumble. As days turned into weeks, Daniel repaired things around the house: leaky faucets, a squeaky gate, the old car her father had abandoned years ago. Lily filled the halls with laughter, and for the first time in years the mansion felt alive again. Evelyn watched them and realized something both terrifying and beautiful. She didn't want them to leave. But every good thing comes with its own test. One night, Evelyn overheard a phone call Daniel's ex-mother-in-law demanding custody of Lily, claiming he couldn't provide a stable home. Daniel's shoulders slumped as he explained that the hearing was in 2 weeks, and he didn't know if he'd win. Evelyn's heart ached. She wanted to help, but she didn't know how without crossing a line. The day before he planned to leave for the custody hearing, Evelyn found him in the garage, fixing her father's car. "You're not alone in this," she said softly. "You've given us both a reason to feel alive again. Let me help you." He smiled sadly. "You already have. More than you know." Evelyn's father, who had been watching Daniel closely ever since that night, called him in for a private talk. "You're a good man," he said gruffly, "and my daughter needs good people around her." Don't walk away out of pride. He pressed a small envelope into Daniel's hand, a recommendation letter from one of the most respected community leaders in town, someone whose support could change the outcome of the custody case. Daniel was speechless. For the first time in a long time, hope didn't feel so far away. 2 weeks later, Daniel won the case. The judge said something about the strength of love and the character of a man who doesn't give up. When Daniel and Lily drove back to the mansion to say goodbye, Evelyn met them halfway. Down the driveway, her hair loose in the wind, her eyes bright with tears. "You came because of a wrong call," she said, voice trembling. But maybe it wasn't wrong at all. Daniel looked at her, then at Lily asleep in the back seat. "What do you mean?" She whispered, taking his hand. "Stay. Not just for tonight. Not just because you saved us. Stay because maybe you were meant to find us. And we were meant to find you." For a long moment, the wind carried only the sound of the trees and the soft hum of the rain returning. Then Daniel nodded, smiling for the first time in years. "Maybe that call wasn't wrong," he said. "Maybe it was a call home." And as the mansion's lights glowed warmly in the distance, Daniel stepped forward into a life he never expected, but one that finally felt like destiny had dialed the right number after all. It began with a wrong call at 2 a.m. But sometimes, the universe doesn't make mistakes, it just finds the right people when they need each other most.